This is Paul Baumgarten. Welcome to the next installment of my series of videos on learning to program with JavaScript. For those of you who are coming across this video via my YouTube channel instead of through my course website, you should know that I have assigned 2 videos authored by a Timothy James to be watched prior to this one. So if you have not watched this video on statements and comments, 13 minutes, or this video on variables, also 13 minutes, both by Timothy James, please watch those 2 videos and practice the skills he teaches before proceeding with this one. Okay, assuming you have watched those, let's get rid of that. Now, with video lessons, useful to keep in mind to pause the video anytime you find a complex concept being introduced. Rewind it a few seconds, watch something again. It's one of the benefits of video lessons, being able to watch something a dozen times if you need to until you understand it. It's okay to do this. Learning a programming language is hard. Really, there's little in life that is of value that will come easy, and that's okay. The challenges in life are what make it worth living. With all that said, today we are going to be looking at the idea of functions, what they are, why we would use them, and how we would make them. So, I have Coding with Chrome open, as I imagine you do too. I'm going to go straight into advanced mode. We're not going to be messing around here. Let's go into coding and JavaScript empty project. Okay, we should be well and truly familiar with what this looks like now. So let's suppose for a moment that I've decided I want to draw a stick person. Wow. As we learnt with the functions from that Timothy James showed us, we have the circle command. There's a few other commands available through Coding with Chrome that he didn't show us. And again, if you're watching this via my YouTube channel instead of my website, I do actually have a little cheat sheet, a little PDF with all the drawing commands on it. I will try and put a link to that in the description of this video. While I'm at it, I should probably put a link to the Timothy James videos there as well. Anyway, let's draw a stick person. So I'm going to start off by drawing a circle, and I'm going to position it at 100, 100, give it a size of 30, and let's make this white and black. Okay, so I've got a white fill and black edge stroke happening. Alright, let's draw in a line running from 100 because that's the x-coordinates, the center of the circle, and that's where the neck needs to come from. If my radius is 30, then the bottom edge of the circle where my neck needs to join will be 130. And I'll draw the line down. Let's go to 230. Alright, I've got a neck and a torso. It's a bit long just to be a neck, really, isn't it? Alright, let's put in a comment here. Let's do some arms. Let's draw a line from 100, 160, so a little way down the torso to about 70 to 30. That sounds good to me. Yeah, this is, it's going to be a funny shape, but you know, you're not watching this video to learn art. You're watching it to learn how to code. So let's do some legs. We'll draw some lines from 100 to 30 because that's where the torso stopped. And we will go, let's go to 70, 330 there. And then let's draw another one from 100 to 30 as well. to about 130, 330. And this should be, yes, balanced. Finally, let's give our person some feet. So let's draw a line from 70, 330 through to 60, 330. Just short little feet, that's all this person needs. Draw a line from 130, 330 to 140, 330. Marvellous. This person doesn't have eyes, a nose, mouth, ears, or fingers, but they have feet. Anyway, I've drawn a stick person, and what a wonderful stick person it is. But the object of today's lesson is not drawing stick people. The object of today's lesson is functions. What is a function and why would I want to use one? Well, a function is basically a grouping of multiple statements or commands, or really in the case of JavaScript, functions. Everything in JavaScript, every statement in JavaScript is a function. So this draw circle is actually a function. It's a function that has been provided to us by coding with Chrome and that we are using it. So we are feeding values into the function and then it produces a result for us. In this case, draws us a lovely little circle. So we're using functions already. We've got the circle and the line function busy here, but we can create our own. And why would I want to do that? Well, let's imagine for a moment that I'm not happy with one stick person. I want to draw a second stick person. In fact, I want to draw an army of stick people. Now, I could do this. I could copy and paste, and I've got a second stick person. You can't see a second stick person on the screen at the moment because all the coordinates are exactly the same. So I've drawn a second person over the top of my first. But if I was to, let's just change all the x coordinates. Let's add 100 to all of them. So all the ones for the x values are going to turn into 2s. So if I put a 2 there, I get another head over there. If I put a 2 here, I'm going to have a really squiggly line until I change this x value to a 2, and so on. Oh, there's not a 1 here, so we'll stick a 1 in front of that, add 100 to that one, add 100 to there, add 100 to there, add 100 to there, add 100 to that one, add 100 to that one, and so on down the line, and we will get our second stick person. Well, that wasn't too bad. A little bit tedious. But if I wanted to draw an army, it would get quite tedious quite quickly. And this is where functions can come in handy, because I could create a function that effectively does this copy and paste and changing of all the numbers for me. So let's take a look at how we might do that. I'll get rid of my second person here. And up to the top here. All right, let's write in the word function stick person. And my stick person is just going to have 2 parameters or arguments. I might tend to prefer the word parameters as the inputs. All right, so the inputs are like here with draw circle. We've got our x coordinate, our y coordinate, our radius, color of the fill, color of the stroke. All right, so there's 5 parameters on a circle, and on the line there's 4 parameters, x and y coordinate of the starting point, x and y coordinate of the end point. So I'm just going to have an x coordinate and a y coordinate as the inputs for my stick person function. Now, to tell JavaScript where the code for my function starts and where it stops, we use curly braces. And as you can see, JavaScript has straight away basically ignored my function and gone back to drawing circles and lines. Because as JavaScript starts at the top of this code, it's saying, oh, there's a function called stick person. It starts here and it stops here. Well, there's nothing in it. And then let's carry on. Let's draw a circle, draw a line, draw a line, draw a line. Okay. So inside these curly braces, I could put this code. And let's get rid of this useless comment. Okay, so circle, let's copy or cut these lines. There goes my person. And paste it into my stick person function. Now note, general good coding practice is to indent. So I'll just press the tab button to do that. Selected all the lines, hit the tab button, and it's indented them all for me in one hit. It is considered good coding practice to indent every time you open a new curly bracket, so that we can keep track of how many layers of how many curly brackets we have open. We can then keep track of how far, how embedded we are and how many curly brackets we need to close later on. You'll see that in action later on. But for now, just take my word for it. It looks nicer if it's indented. All right, so I've got my function, but it's not doing anything for me, okay? Because what JavaScript is doing as it comes in and sees my program, well, function is this, stick person, X and Y going in, starts the function here. This is all part of the function, and function ends here. No, that's it, that's all. We haven't actually told it to use the function. So I'm going to put in another line here, and I'm just going to say stick person. Okay, so, and then open my brackets, and now it's appeared, and then semicolon. Now, why has it appeared when I haven't given it an X and a Y value? Well, JavaScript's kind of been kind to you at the moment. Depending upon your web browser setup, this would actually still crash or not draw anything, because we've told it, JavaScript, to expect two things going in, and we haven't provided them. But JavaScript, yeah, is nicer to you than most other programming languages in this regard. And so it's basically thinking, oh, well, they must be optional and it's not required. And at the moment, we're not using X and Y, and so it doesn't affect the drawing of our stick person at all. But it's probably time we should change that. So let's decide, and it's entirely arbitrary. It's up to you as the programmer to decide the meaning of X and Y. You can decide that X and Y is the top left corner of kind of a box. If you drew a box around the person, the top left corner of where that box would be is what the X and Y means. Or you could say X and Y would be the coordinate of the middle of the torso. You could say X and Y would be the coordinate of the right toe. Okay, it's entirely up to you. I'm going to say let X and Y represent the center of the head. Now, in this case, that's this circle. That X value is just, it represents the center of that circle, so that's going to be that. And then the Y will be that. Now, I've lost my head because at the moment I don't have any values for X and Y. So let's come back down here to stick person and put in 100, 100, and my circle will reappear. Now, let's start updating all of my different values in here, all my X and Y coordinates, using what we learned in previous videos about variables. Let's replace these values with something that is relative to X and Y. So we'll remember, okay, at the moment X and Y is 100, 100, and if we have a working stick person, not disjointed or looking skewed or crazy. So anywhere there was an X value of 100, I can an X coordinate of 100, I can just replace it with X because I know that this works. So let's replace that 100. Let's replace that one. Let's replace this. Now, here we've got an X coordinate of 70. Now, so what do we do here? Well, if this x works when it's 100, and this works when it's 70, then I can just put in x minus 30, can't I? Because I know that at the moment this x is 100. So 100 minus 30 gives me 70. And really, so what this means is when I'm drawing this arm and it's moving from this point to this point, I'm wanting the arm to move to the left a total of 30 pixels, which is what this is saying. So whatever number I have here for x, I want my arm to move 30 to the left, and that's what it's going to do. And then same for this other arm, x and 130, well, so that'll be x plus 30. And then we've got the same here, x minus 30, x plus 30, x minus 30, oh, 60. That is x minus 40. You get good at your mental maths during programming. 130 and x plus 40. Okay, so far this works. Now if I come down here and change my value for x, well, hang on a sec. Let's make this a bigger value. Look at that, the person moves across. Okay, because everything is relative to everything else. So if I change one x value, all the other x values automatically update and compensate. Well, that's great. What happens if I change my y value? Nothing, other than the head moves. Okay, because that is the only place where I've used my y value. So what I need to do is update all these other y values. All right, so remember that this was originally coded up where the y value for the circle was 100. So I need to make everything relative to that. So 130 should be y plus 30. Okay, and now you'll see that that torso line is joined on to the bottom of the head. Now, if y is 100, then this 230 should be y plus 130. And now the torso is in the correct spot. Let's go through and fix up the rest of these. So 100 plus 60, 100 plus 130, 100 plus 60. Oops, hang on a sec. Anyone else notice my little error here? I'm typing x's for my y values. I was suddenly wondering why this was looking off. My y coordinates should be y's. Y plus 130. And that's better. The arms are looking much more arm-like, and now we just need to fix up the legs and the feet. So y plus 130, y plus 230, y plus 130, y plus 230, y plus 230, y plus 230, y plus 230, and y plus 230. There we go. And now I can move this around just by changing these x and y values. Beautiful. Okay. Now, we actually could have done that without doing a function. We could have coded all of this up and just had a line here that said, create a variable x, and we'll make it 50, and create a variable y, and set that to 50, and then we just change these variables and the thing will draw. Okay, so all we've done is we've converted our stick person to be based off a couple of variables, but these variables are still wrapped inside this thing called a function. So let's see now what is the other real benefit of having created it as a function. I said before I wanted an army of stick people, and you know I was going to have these 8 lines of code that I was going to have to update every time. But as you've already seen, I can draw a stick person wherever I want just by changing the numbers that are inside these brackets representing the x and y values. So how about I do exactly that? Let's stick person at 150 at a height of 50, and whoa, I have two stick people. Let's go 250 and 50. And let's put in another one. And I can do this all day. I can make as many stick people as I want. And it only requires one command, one statement, or in reality, one use of a function. Isn't that nice? I could even copy and paste all of this. And let's put in some with some y values. They'll be over the top of each other. It's starting to look like an army. So, the big benefit of using functions is code reusing, if I can speak properly, code reusability. We can reuse something that's complicated with one simple statement. And all I have to do is change the inputs each time to get a result that is customized to what I want for that particular circumstance. Great. All right. One other thing you need to know about functions. Functions can be used to create an output on the screen like this, absolutely. But they can also return a result to another variable. And what do I mean by this? So we know, for instance, that we can have a variable. Let's have variable n for number, and we might call this one, give it a starting value of 10. And let's have another variable O, give this a number 13. All right. Now, I could print out the value of this variable, and there is a, I'm just going to remind myself now actually, okay, if I do command dot write, I can do n add O, and that's giving me a 23 up the top here. Okay, so 10 plus 13 is 23. Excellent. So I've put that into this function, this command.write function. Okay. What if I wanted to store the result in a variable instead of it printing to the screen? I could do p is equal to n plus o. And now if I command write p, I'll get another 23. Excellent. That works. What if I wanted to do something a little more complicated than just addition? Say I wanted to find the factorial or some kind of complicated thing going on. Right? The thing is, it doesn't actually matter what the complicatedness is. It all works the same. So let's just show, let's pretend for a moment that I couldn't just do a plus sign to get this addition happening, and I needed to create a function to add the two together. So I could write a function, and I'm going to call it add, surprisingly enough. And going into this function, there will be two numbers. Okay, and right now it's an empty function, everything works fine. All right, and so let's say I'm going to have a variable and we'll call it result. Okay, and for some reason I can use the plus sign in here. Okay, but I can't in my other programs. This is all very hypothetical, but it's about demonstrating how functions can return a value. So I've got this thing, That's adding these two numbers together, storing it into a variable called result. Okay. So if I wanted to run the function add 20 and 4, I don't see any results happening. Do you? No. Because at the moment there's no command for printing on the screen anyway associated with this or here. Let's assume for a moment that this assignment of results thing will work. So what are we up to? NOPQ. So variable Q is equal to whatever the add function returns for the numbers 20 and 4. And we can write out the result for that. So let's just write out Q. And at the moment, Q is undefined. So Q doesn't actually have a value. It's because this function isn't actually returning a result yet. So let's go back to our function and take a look at this. A plus B, storing it into this thing called result. How can I get it out of this function and into this variable Q? Okay, the way of doing this is the magic word is return. And I want to return what I've got stored in my result variable. So return result. And well, look at that. I now have 24 up here, which is 20 plus 4. All right, and going in as inputs into the add function. So JavaScript sees that and goes, oh, the add function, that's over here on line 36. So A and B are the two inputs. What are we doing with A and B? We are going to add the two together, store it into result. Then the next line, whatever's in result is what we are going to return. So the return value is what this gets replaced with and assigned into Q. And then Q gets written out to the screen. So I could change this to 104 and we get 104 print out. Let's make it 100 and 100 and we should have a 200 print out. Excellent. So that second part of functions will come in very handy later on. When we're just using functions mainly for drawing things on screen, we're probably not going to be returning results very often. But later on when we're doing all sorts of string manipulation, user input, user output, those kinds of things, reading values from a file, manipulating data, whatever we might be doing, we will need to be able to write functions that return results. And so the key part to remember there is return. So anyway, that's a bit of a brief introduction to creating functions. Why don't you have a go at creating some functions that draw your own object and draw multiple instances of it all over the screen. Maybe you can make 2 or 3 different functions and have them scattered copies of those things across the screen. So I hope that helped, and I will speak to you next time. This is Mr. Baumgarten signing off.